Welcome to this edition of Platform. My name is Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. The United Nations says there is no international legal definition of hate speech, and that the characterization of what is hateful is controversial and disputed. In a statement in May 2019, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres described hate speech as a menace to democratic values, social stability, and peace. He also pledged the UN's commitment to confront hate speech at every turn, noting that silence can signal indifference, bigotry, and intolerance, adding that any escalation of the situation may lend to the vulnerable becoming victims. The United Nations therefore unveiled a strategy and plan of action on hate speech, which is aimed at addressing the root causes and drivers of hate speech, including enabling effective UN responses to the impact of hate speech on societies. The United Nations announced its readiness to support member states upon request to tackle hate speech in their various jurisdictions. While Nigeria is yet to seek the United Nations support to tackle hate speech, the 9th Senate of Nigeria has commenced a legislative process to criminalize hate speech and provide for the prohibition of hate speeches. This is our focus on this edition of Platform with Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, the Senate's Deputy Chief Whip and sponsor of the bill for an act to provide for the prohibition of hate speeches and for other related matters. Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi is serving his second term in the Senate, representing Niger North Senatorial District. He holds the degree of Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, and while in the 8th Senate 2011 to 2015, he served as the Senate spokesperson and chairman of the Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs. Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, Deputy Chief Whip, 9th Senate, and sponsor of the bill for an act to provide for the prohibition of hate speeches and other related matters. Welcome to Platform.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
On the panelist's corner, of course, is our head of Judiciary Desk of the NTA, Femi Okyowo.
Nice to be back on the platform, Mohammed.
And of course, we have the lady who has been in charge of the political desk NTA with the NTA International, Kemi Fake.
My pleasure to be here.
Well, distinguished, let me, from the onstart, really congratulate your courage for coming up with this hate speech bill, if we can call it so, in a shortened form. But what was the background? What were your thoughts when you came up with this bill?
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be on this very important platform. And let me say, like you rightly pointed out in your opening, of course, I started this, journey in the 8th Senate, and like I would like to, clarify. The first reading was taken. I was preparing for the second reading, but unfortunately, time in terms of the political atmosphere caught up with me. And when I assessed the fact that this is a very sensitive matter, and of course, one of the period where you see hate speeches is actually the political electioneering period. So I decided not to pursue it further so that we don't lose the import of what I intend to bring. So I left it, and of course it elapsed with the effluxion of the time of the 8th Senate. Now, having been privileged to be back again in the 9th Senate, I decided let me start early, because I'm convinced, as in the first time, that truly hate speech has become a societal menace in Nigeria. And where did I get my facts from? I'm talking about facts here, not figments of my imagination, and not emotions or sentiments. By the way, I'm from Niger State, I'm a Bogu man, but there is one thing. I grew up in a society where I'm able to mix with all shades of tribal people, and I know tolerance is what I've been taught to, learn. But I came to see a society where there has been so much violence from different parts of the country, both in the north and in the south. Now, I stumbled upon, out of curiosity of finding out what are the causes of this violence, I saw studies by scholars, academics, CSOs, and even some NGOs looking at violent crisis in Nigeria, causes and all the like. And from the studies I have come across, it came to my mind that there are two conclusions. First, the fault line in Nigeria is basically either ethnicity or religion. But then, I also saw studies from both the international arena and even from the local studies that all of these violent crises are normally preceded by hate speeches among some people. And it is that hate speech that finally put the flame, leading to the violence that is being witnessed. And in all of this violence, the people who started it are not always the victims. The victims are innocent bystanders, people who do not even know what was happening, but are caught up in this conflagration, either because they belong to one religious sect as against the other, or they belong to one ethnic group as against the other. And these events have been a recurring decimal. If you check violent clashes in this country, most or all of them, this is the scenario. And so, looking at what was happening, and particularly also in the international arena, the case of Kenya was very instructive. In 2008, there was a election, and then the violence that followed. So Kenya took action and came up with the body, which actually is the model that I'm using. And what they did here was to actually put in place a body that was saddled with the responsibility of monitoring speeches coming from people, because these things do not just happen overnight. They build up. So they have this body, and when they get a group or an individual who is peddling some of these statements or commentaries or speeches that are potentially inflammable to the extent that they can lead to violence, they now go after those people by inviting them, engaging them. If it is communities, they engage them to make sure that they are able to intercede in the process of getting them to understand themselves through dialogue, through discourse, through engagement. And like we can see, the next election after the 2008 was, I think that of 2014 or so, or thereabout. And, that election was very peaceful. And for the first time, we saw the winner being congratulated by the loser, and everywhere went. So for me, taking a cue from all of this, I felt the need for this particular hate speech bill is still there. And perhaps I will come back to, I know where the controversies are, and I think I'll address it.
Yes, out there is a lot of mix, possibly because the two of them are coming at the same time. There is a bill on the regulation of social media, and then this bill on the hate speech. What are the differences? Senator Sani is moving that, and you are.
He said that is a falsehood.
Forceful. Okay. Now, hate speech, are they only targeted at tribes and religion alone?
Well, if you check, even from his opening listing, most jurisdictions and the most widely stated, definition is actually looking at bias, discrimination against somebody on the basis of his tribe, okay, or ethnicity, on the basis of religion, on the basis of race. But you see, here in Nigeria, we are not talking about race. Race is not much of an issue. That's why I said the fourth line for us here, based on studies, is the tribal issue. You are either a Hausa, a Fulani, or a Yoruba, a Igbo, or any other tribe. And most crises is usually revolving around the issue of this ethnicity. And then when it comes to religion, you're either a Muslim or a Christian. And you come to realize that the moment there is a crisis between Mr. A and B, and Mr. A is a Christian, Mr. B is a Muslim, any one of them that is able to invoke through some statement or whatever to get people who are in his own, a side of this categorization to feel inflamed that this person has committed an offense. And I think in this country we've seen situations where that has happened. So what we are saying in essence is that all of these, fault lines, we cannot fold our arms and allow people to continue to invoke sentiments along these fault lines, leading to the death of people, destruction of property. Usually when there is violence in any town, depending on the magnitude of the violence, you will see the state government imposing a curfew. When that happens, for the singular day, many people lose their source of economic livelihood. Some people have to go out every day to fend for themselves they can eat.
Before we go to the nitty-gritty of this bill, please give us a picture of whether the body that would come up from this bill, how it will function.
Right. Now, what we are saying is the body is an independent body, and as far as the bill is concerned, we have looked at how it should be independent, and we have addressed it by saying that first, it will be answerable to no other authority, but shall operate in accordance to the Act. Now, at the same time, how it is going to be appointed is going to be appointed by the National Council of State. Mr. President is the chairman of the National Council of State. When such person is appointed, then it will come to the Senate for confirmation, and his confirmation has to be by 2/3 majority. This is because we know that the potential for people to feel there is going to be abuse, we need to put in place measures that can check this. Now, beyond that also...
Did you say the Senate? Because the draft bill I have is talking about the National Assembly.
No, I think it's...
not the Senate.
Is it the National Assembly? I'm coming.
Yes.
We have it here. Out of office. And I think I'm coming. The chairman. Okay.
And I took a note of that and said it's even going to be, the conditions appear to be more stringent than that of the Chief Justice of Nigeria.
Yes.
It's going to be National Assembly, that means the two chambers will have to concur with that appointment.
Coming. Well, I think I remember initially we were talking about the National Assembly, but then because of the complexity, it became obvious that, look, it should still stick to what we have always been saying, to be the Senate.
It should be the Senate.
So
okay.
maybe
so there is an amendment there to that effect.
Yeah.
But still at that,
yes.
I mean, the fact that Mr. President will appoint the chairman of the Independent National Commission for the Prohibition of Hate Speeches, and then the Council of State will, or rather he will recommend to the Council of State. It gives that person, whoever now becomes the chairman, some edge over other appointments. Why did you craft it so?
Well, the point is that for us, we believe the subject matter require somebody to have that clout and influence to be able to bring all parties, whether from the side of the religious divide or from the side of the ethnicity or any other reason why there is this hatred or discrimination. So that at the end of the day, if you look at the body of the bill, the emphasis is actually on prevention rather than even allowing it to happen. Because if you have people who will be able to monitor, they know where these things are coming from. And people usually who do this always have something bothering them. And when you engage them, you are able to understand what the reasons are. And through that, you may be able to at least bring a modulation. So that if government needs to really deal with certain things that is making them to feel the way they are feeling, these issues can be resolved.
So and that body will not necessarily be a prosecutorial body?
No, it's not just a prosecutorial body. It's also having a process through which they are able to monitor and prevent.
But they can prosecute?
Yeah, they can also prosecute.
Okay, this bill.
Sorry, let him just quickly address the issue. Some people are saying it's a duplication. The National Human Rights Commission already is doing almost something similar to what you're proposing.
Well, the point we are saying here is that the aspect of human rights is looking at people who are discriminated against those rights that have been given in the Constitution. But here we're talking about a situation where you have people who constantly see nothing good in the other people, and they constantly try to create this atmosphere that is so charged within the context of what is hatred. And as a result of that, you see conflagrations. Because the truth of the matter is that most of the bodies and even some of the laws people are quick to point out have been in existence. So why is it not preventing all of what we are seeing as hate-induced violence? This is the major reason. And like I said, some other countries have been forced to legislate on this subject matter, and they've been able to tackle this issue appropriately. Nigeria has over 370 ethnic groups. And right now, as we are speaking, we may be concerned about just the Hausa, Fula, Yoruba, and Igbo because they are the majority. But there are some states, if you go to local government A and B, they are having a long-running battle. And anytime something comes up and somebody says something hot, it leads to violence between these two warring communities. There are several communities in Nigeria that are faced with that. How come all of these laws have not been able to? These are the areas that this commission will be going to look at, because like we all know, it starts somewhere, and the moment it keeps spreading, it can consume all of us.
The penalties, will it be anything different from what the section 373 of the the criminal code and what we have in the penal code? Would it be anything different from what we have in these codes?
What is in that code?
On defamation of character, they have I don't have
people talk about libel, defamation of character. No, these are not. It's not the same thing. They are not the same thing. Hate speech is talking about the extreme situation where people come out, say some very, very nasty, bad, hot, toxic things against another person simply because he is that person.
Yeah, in fact,
that is the key issue.
The proposed bill, or rather act, my reading of it appears to capture or to apply to distinct areas: ethnic discrimination, hate speech, harassment on the basis of ethnicity, offense of ethnic or racial content, and discrimination by way of victimization. Yeah. As the author of the bill, let's look at these distinct, if you like, areas separately. Yeah. What do you mean in the bill when you say ethnic discrimination? So that for the benefit of viewers and the larger public, people will get to know why the bill in the first place.
All right.
What do we mean, or rather, what do you mean by ethnic discrimination?
All right. Let me tell you that today, we all know Nigeria has more than 370 ethnic groups. There are some ethnic groups that find it very difficult to get employment in some places. Why? That is discrimination. And it will be purposefully driven by some people who already have that advantage. Not because they are not qualified, not because they don't have the capacity to do this job, but outright discrimination against them on the basis of the fact that this is who they are. This is what we're talking about. And what we are saying is, if Nigeria must be seen as one, everybody must be given that sense of belonging so that he feels that, yes, I'm a Nigerian. And I think Nigeria has reached that stage in which we must begin to drive Nigerianness so that we can begin to blow out all these ethnic divides that characterize what we have. I'm aware, as a matter of fact, that there are some agencies when you go, if you don't belong to a particular ethnic group, you will never even survive in that particular organization. You on your own, you will be forced to look for transfer or to even leave the job and move away.
Even if the agency is a federal agency?
Rule is not in place.
You see, federal character is talking about when it comes to employment, you should do this, you should do that.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
But beyond that, even when that happens, you are employed. You are within that. You are already there. And you are facing discrimination. Everything you do, you are never good. That is happening.
How can the law deal with that?
That is exactly what this bill is talking about. That people who are faced with this kind of things, this particular body
can seek redress in this.
Now come in and intervene to make sure that these things are removed.
Now let's go to
I'm saying this as a matter of fact. I was in public service, and I know fully well there are organizations where people as viewers are watching us. I know I'm talking somebody's heart. I'm speaking what some people are facing. We are simply because of what they are never seen as good. They are qualified, everything about them is okay, but because of who they stand to be, within the context of their ethnicity, they are being discriminated against. If they are supposed to go on assignment, they are not the one. Their junior can even be brought about. Now, all of these things, when it accumulates in the life of our citizens, it leads to depression, and even some people commit suicide without you knowing why they commit suicide.
So your commission, how would it intervene?
The intervention here is that it has a process through which complaints can be registered. People who are suffering this kind of discrimination can send their complaints there, and the commission will go in there and address this issue.
Now let's look at the hate speech. What does the bill, what are the thoughts in the bill describing what is hate speech and what redress any complainant against hate speech will take?
Yes, what we are saying here is that within the context of hate speech, anybody who involves in making speeches against somebody on the basis of this,
what is the bill's contemplation? What is hate speech?
There is a definition here, which, like, based on so far what commentaries have received, there are other definitions that we can use to standardize. Okay?
Of course, that means before. At what stage? Sorry, at what stage has this bill gone?
It's just the first reading.
Good. It means you still can keep updating.
Of course.
Okay. Go on.
There is room for when. In fact, by the time I'm coming to do my lead debate, even within the content of my lead debate, I intend to address the issue of definition, and to say that there is, based on what the United Nations Committee on Racial Discrimination and then the European Union Council of Ministers, they've also given. So all of this, we can use it to standardize exactly what it is, remove whatever ambiguity, that we are clear. Because like I said, every country address an aspect of hate speech. Some countries it is race purely, mostly in the West. But for us here, it's ethnicity and religion, like I've said, and that has been established by scholars and so many other studies by CSOs and NGOs.
Let's allow you to land in this case of definition, at least as you have it now. Yes,
as we have it now. I think it's in the beginning of the bill where we said, okay, hate speech. We said a person who uses, publish, present, produce, place, provide, distribute, and or direct the performance of any material, written and or visual, which is threatening, abusive or insulting, or involve the use of threatening, abusive or insulting words or behavior, commits an offense if such person intends thereby to tear up ethnic hatred. So that is the key issue. There must be that intention to stir up ethnic hatred, which that means clearly, if two people of the same ethnic groups abuse themselves and say certain things, you cannot at that particular point say he's trying to stir up ethnic hatred. Do you get the point?
But if a person of another ethnic group takes up that,
when somebody of another ethnic groups does that with the intention to actually stir up that ethnic hatred on the other person on the basis of ethnicity. Because, like lawyers we say, in everything you do, intention is the key.
Yes, you may have had the general criticism that some of these bills coming up now are duplications of existing laws. Now, the Penal Code, Northern States Federal Provisions Act, the section 417, treats inciting hatred between classes as an offense under the Penal Code. What way is that different from what you're trying to tackle?
What classes? What is the definition of
classes? Class could be tribal classes. It could be strata, economic strata.
You know, the issue is this. For me, one thing I know for sure is that society is dynamic. And some of these laws have long outlived the time. Because even the language...
People say that we don't even enforce the small laws, the little ones we are complaining about.
The issue there is that for me, it is not even about the enforcement. It's about having a people who will go through a process of engagement so that those people who are involved in all of these things can continuously be engaged for us to even reduce Mark you, if these things have not been in place, nobody will even contemplate the need for a law. 20 years ago, there was nothing like hate speech. There was nothing like that in this country.
Do you then
because
agree?
At that time, even when you see people abusing themselves, it's not in the manner that is being conjured today. Today, the intention is such that you see somebody and clearly you exhibit your hatred against him purely.
Some people, some people are saying from the commentaries we're having because of this act, that instead of coming up with this at this time, that the steps that you should have made is to improve on the 1999 Constitution, as people have been proposing over time, over the years in this country. And there are these questions that, how are we sure that this one will not go the way the past bills and laws in Nigeria?
Well, like I said, we are not just proposing the bill and just leaving it there. That is why we're saying we need a commission. And the reason is not far-fetched. You see, if you have witnessed the scale of violence we're talking about, you understand what we're talking about. And during those periods, and up to today, there are some people who will not want to travel to some part of the country because of that phobia. Are we going to continue to allow this to happen? My answer is no. Countries where hate speech has led to crisis, we know the kind of damage it has done to them. And like I said, studies have confirmed most, if not all, violent clashes you see in many countries. And like I said, even in Nigeria, they are normally preceded by hate speech. And I think we cannot just allow this to continue, fold our arms, and let it continue. And if you look at the import of the bill, beyond the aspect of the offense, I think there is a very robust provision for engaging citizens who otherwise are left on their own to involve themselves in spreading this hateful speech. Because this thing starts small, and the moment it's allowed to fester on and on and on, we don't know where it is going to take us. The classical case of Rwanda, they don't even have the kind of ethnic, diversity we have.
Nigeria, yes.
The tribes, the two tribes are similar tribes. They understand some components of themselves. But listening to what happened, if you go back and read it, I've seen 3 theses, PhD theses on the Rwandan crisis, giving a blow-by-blow account of how this was allowed to fester in a manner that it was normalized.
Now,
and
in the bill, maybe if you address this, the bill is talking about discrimination by way of victimization.
Yeah.
What's the import of that?
This was what I explained earlier. That today in this country, in various government outfits, some people are victimized by being discriminated. They become victims of who they are. As a result of which, like I said, those who are at the helm of affairs of those organizations, they don't see anything good in them. They don't see anything good in them. So they are discriminated against in terms of even promotion. And other things that makes you to be able to work in that organization, give your best. You come, maybe your boss does not belong to the same tribe with you, so because he doesn't see anything good in you, he abuses you every day. He torments you with very hurtful words and says nasty things to you, demoralizing you internally. You don't know where to turn to. You keep on like that. You sulk in, you sulk in, you sulk in. That is terrible.
At what stage would the commission decide that engagement stops? Since you said part of the job of the commission will be to engage people and sensitize people, at what stage would the commission say, no, we stop engagement, let's prosecute?
Yes, you see, the commission has a procedure through which, for example, when somebody is being discriminated against and he lodges a complaint and the commission comes in, there will be an agreement. It's provided in the Act. That agreement is what serves to at least get the commitment of both parties to respect certain things in a way to allow peace to reign so that there can be that convivial atmosphere to work. When you abuse that agreement, then clearly what you are saying is that you are now deliberately acting in the light of this offense. And of course, at that stage, the commission has no option but to prosecute you. So like I said, we are not just looking at this within the context of wanting people to be prosecuted. In fact, if today we will have a situation where Nigerians, we see themselves as one country, one united country, and all of this unnecessary bigotry, unnecessary divisions and whatnot will not be there. Who talks about what is the use of law? Law becomes redundant.
Section 37(4) of the proposed or of the bill and the proposed act is talking about, in order to complain to the commission under this section, it is not necessary for the alleged contravention to relate to the complainant.
Yeah.
Are you saying a person who the contravention does not affect can complain to the commission?
Now, what are we saying? We're all Nigerians. Like I said, there are people who can be so bashed that they become timid about what they're suffering from. Somebody can complain on their behalf.
Okay.
That's what we're saying. In essence, to save that person from maybe destroying himself. And these things are very serious. It's simply because we've not really taken our time to understudy what is happening. And for you to see the impact of it, please, I want viewers to go back and review the lady who committed suicide in Abuja. What she complained about was hatred exhibited on her by her own parents. That's how bad hate can be. And she said she was never good. Everything she does was never appreciated. She got so depressed and so frustrated that she became suicidal.
We now get to a
these are the issues
stage another stage which people have talked about, and which we tried on this panel to talk about at the beginning of this. People say that the classification of hate itself is subjective.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I will say is that, things evolve. And at the last
classification
count,
now or definition?
Definition. At the last count, I have seen more than 20 countries having laws specifically targeting hate speech. But this is peculiar to their country. And I'm saying it as Nigerians. If you say hate is subjective, but the reality of the impact of hate is not subjective. Because there are people who, right now, if you tell them, they will say, yes, they know of an event that was triggered by hate speech, which led to violence. That person lost entirely his shop for no just cause. He doesn't know A, B, C, but he has lost his shop, and with it, his source of livelihood. Is that subjective? No. Or leading to violent death of their loved ones. That is not subjective.
The act that leads to the burning of a shop is taken care already by law in Nigeria.
What we are saying is, must we continuously wait until that happens?
No.
So that is what this bill is talking about.
Now, I know where Femi is coming from, but let's
the point we are making.
Specifically
we don't even want that to happen.
To where he is interested, the penalties. It appears the death penalty that you are proposing in the bill appears to be the most controversial aspect of the penalties that are provided for. How grievous would that hate speech be that would attract hate penalty?
Well, I think the death penalty was only linked to a situation where it has been proven beyond reasonable doubt that truly some people lost their life because of that hate speech. That is what we're talking about.
A committee or group of persons losing their life.
Yes. But like I said, I took notice of exactly the concerns. Of course, 3 days ago, I issued a press statement to the effect that the bill is just read the first time. In the course of the working of the bill, that issue of death will actually be taken away. And as a Senate, we will look at other options, what the penalty should be. Because the essence of a penalty is to serve as a deterrent. Now, what I will also say from the commentaries I've received so far is the fact that all of us don't want death. And I'm happy that all of us have appreciated that death is not good. So within that context, let us not allow some people to hide under some banners, stimulate ethnic or religious hatred, create violence, and allow some innocent people to also lose their life. Because that is what this bill is talking about, so that we can prevent that from continuously happening. And I challenge anybody. I've seen studies, like I've said, studies that are standard studies, because I have a research background, and if I see a journal article, for example, where it is published, matters for me. If it is published in what we call peer review journal, then I know that yes, it's a study that has met all the classical standard of what a research study should be. And I've gone through journal articles, some I have to buy myself, to understand the subject we're talking about. So like I said, for effect, the death penalty, of course, is going to be taken off at the appropriate time. Even when I come to the lead debate, I will make that statement because I'm the sponsor of the bill. So I have those liberties, and I will definitely make that statement very clear. And the issue of definition, we're going to standardize it. I'm working with some other legal people, because let me say very clearly, I'm not a lawyer. I was concerned. I came up with this bill, and of course I had some legal hands that helped me to look at this within the context of whatever is in existence. And of course, the issue of libel, defamation, all of this is like a kind of trajectory. Yeah. The hate speech we're talking about is the extreme end. It's the extreme end, and it must be that extreme, because we all know there are people who will speak today. They have followers. They have people who listen to them. There are people who respect them. And when they come out and said, no, we cannot accept so group of people, you should do this, you should do that, their followers will take it, and before you know what's happening, they are out there causing mayhem.
Let me take you back to... How will members get their facts? Will it be through whistleblowers?
What facts?
Facts of hate speech that somebody has given.
Remember, for a speech to become hateful, it must have been said in public. These are other parts of the
transmitted
definition.
Through a channel.
Yes. These are the other aspects of the definition that we're going to take care of. And let me say it very clearly here. Canada has a law on hate speech. And they have actually handled cases that even went to Supreme Court of Canada. Now, in that particular case, they have given 1, 2, 3, 5 other features that must happen. And we're going to take a leaf from that to enrich what we have in this particular bill.
Closely related to that would be the channel of transmission, because the Kenyan example you gave was the Rwandan example. The media played a key role.
Yeah.
Where is media in this context in Nigeria?
Well, the issue there is within the context. If you look at it, our target is not that medium. Our target is the person who is quoted to have said so.
Who quotes?
Who is quoted, because somebody must have made a statement. That person is not because of a particular media house that people know. It is the person who is making the statement that is going to...
But he cannot make the statement in a vacuum. He must have made it through a channel. Is the channel going to be liable?
No.
Or the platform going to be liable?
No.
Okay.
Within the contemplation of this bill, no. What we are looking at is purely that particular person who made that statement. Because, like I said, is within ethnic or religious group. None of the media houses is Christian or Muslim. None of the media houses is Igbo, Yoruba, or Hausa. None.
Now let's come to the politics of the Senate, the 9th Senate. Why do you are the deputy chief whip of the Senate, but why do you think the acting spokesperson of the 9th Senate had to now come to the media to say it is not a Senate bill and it has nothing to do with the third term agenda of Mr. President?
Well, let me say it very clearly. He's a spokesman of the Senate. I was there before him, and I worked for 4 years. He was quoted out of context, and it was pure mischief.
So can we say that is hate speech too?
No, that's not. There are mischief. Mischief is just a small, that's why I said this thing is like a trajectory. You understand? The hate speech is the extreme end.
Let's come back to this
So
issue.
the point I'm trying to make here is that all he was saying, some people were saying Senate. Is Senate a person? It's an institution. Bills in the Senate are sponsored under 3 categories. Executive bill, okay? And all executive bill, when they enter the Senate, they come through the leader of the Senate. If there are 1 million executive bill, you see those 1 million bills registered against who is the leader. In this case, for example, Senator Abdullahi. That's what you see. All those ones are executive bills. Now, when it is a private member bill, like the one I'm sponsoring, you will see my name there. If I have other co-sponsors, you will see, even when it's read the first time, it's only the main sponsor that will, the other co-sponsors, their name will not be there. It will only be there in the document. Okay? So what he was trying to say is that this is a private member bill. It's not an executive bill. That's what he quoted that very day. That it is not an executive bill. And some people are inferring that the executive have brought this bill because they are plotting third term for Mr. President. And he said, no, that is wrong. That was the explanation he made. And I was standing right there with him. But next time, all people were saying is, the Deputy Senate Chief will disown. Blah, 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 disown. What is the meaning of disown? I'm a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, representing Niger North Senatorial District. And so I don't need anybody to own me. Because I'm already owned by those who brought me. Let alone to talk about being disowned. No, there's nothing like that. And as an institution, when everything we do, when it becomes a Senate thing, nobody has right over it. Now, it's a process you are brought in. That's why you go for lead debate. It is when I go for the lead debate, I'm able to convince my colleagues on the merit or otherwise of this bill, and they've now allowed it to be read the second time. Then at that stage, it becomes the property of the Senate. Then the Senate will now refer it to its own committee, and then the committee will go for public hearing to ask members, the Nigerian public, to bring in their own ideas on how this bill can be made possible.
Senator Muhammad Sani Musa's bill on the regulation of the social media has been read this second time now. It has passed second reading.
Yeah.
Yours is just the first reading.
Yeah.
Do you contemplate any scenario whereby your distinguished colleagues would say there should be some harmonization of the two bills?
Well, what I want to say is that I see the two bills as different, clearly different. I'm looking at a mechanism, because what we say hate speech, when somebody goes in an assembly in the market square and makes very derogatory statements in the manner we have described in hate speech and incite violence, okay, of an ethnic nature or of a religious nature, that is different from the question of maybe if the person has said it in social media. So there are two different things. And like I said, my targeting is I'm looking at the extreme
But you also,
aspect.
you also talked about preventive.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what if, and when I use the word subjective, what if the commission, somebody makes a speech in the market square with tribal and religious implications, and the commission turns a blind eye to it? The public is saying, oh, this man has said something wrong. This man has said something wrong. And the commission thinks it's nothing. Or somebody says something else, and the commission says, oh, this is hate speech. This is hate speech. We'll take it up. And all that. And people say, this is what we hear every day. People say this kind of thing. What are the standards of judgment? We try to talk about it in definition, but it also can be subjective in the way the commission handles it. The commission can turn a blind eye to what people think.
What you are saying here is captured by Section 39 of the proposed bill, where it says commission may decline to entertain some complaints. But at the same time, if you check in Section 2, it says before declining to entertain a complaint, the commission may, by written notice, invite any person. So in essence, the commission is not at liberty to throw things away. They are at liberty to make sure by the time they are throwing things away, even the person who brought the complaint will have been convinced that, okay, it is something they should let go. And I think that is the essence. And that is what you get through dialogue, through involvement, through engagement. And you know, some of our problems in this country is simply because people don't even stay to listen to each other. When things are written, some people don't even read it. For example, in this particular bill, when it came out, there are so many people who just say, no, but they've not ever even read it. They've not even read it. And I've seen people very highly experienced, very highly professional, very highly technical who have written. And at the end of their submission, after condemning everything, they said, well, when I see the bill. So this is how funny this is.
There's this insinuation out there that this bill is likely to increase the spate of intolerance, you know, in the country. Because if somebody will have to quote somebody saying something, allegedly, you know, regarded as hate speech, that if I don't like you, everything you say seems to, yes, you know, be on the other side.
We see we're all human beings. And like we said, all of this is, the reason why he's talking about subjectivity is because it's tied down to our emotions. Isn't it? But let me tell you, today we know there is what they call emotional intelligence. Knowledge has brought out emotional intelligence as a new body of knowledge. And organizations that have decided to take in what emotional intelligence teaches are doing better, because nobody likes a toxic environment. There is nobody who is working. Your boss never sees anything good in you. He doesn't even say thank you. He doesn't even say sorry when he knows it's wrong. And he expects you to have productivity. I think that is why countries like Bhutan have even come out to say, look, we want to start measuring happiness. You see somebody, he's working, but he comes and sits down and he's sulking. He doesn't even know who to turn to complain. And the reason is simply abuse. So the point we are making is that if we have a body that will continue to engage, they are at liberty to bring out processes through which they can enhance engagement along these 4 lines that we talk about. After all, you are all living witnesses to the fact that after every election, we have one committee, ad hoc committee or the other, being set up to go around and solve these problems. Why do we have to wait until these things happen? Why can't we have some people saddled with the responsibility to engage people so that communities that have these potentials know there are what they call flashpoints? You know there are what they call flashpoints. And in this particular, bill, what we are saying is people who will be in this particular commission will not have been people who have championed ethnicity in the past. They are not going to be members of any political party. They must be people with high integrity, and so on and so forth. The criteria have been set up. And the intent here is to make sure that we get the right people, very courageous, honest, patriotic Nigerians who love these countries and who, when given this responsibility, do everything in their power to make sure that there is a kind of, modulation of how we relate with each other and how we view it.
As we round off this discussion, because our time is fast spent, what will you say to this argument that rather than prohibiting hate speech, the international law appears now, as it exists, prohibits only the incitement to discrimination, hostility and violence, which naturally also leads to incitement. But in this your bill, we're trying to look at criminalizing hate speech.
Well, let me tell you one funny thing. The same international community we talked about, when it happened and some people were killed in Bosnia-Herzegovina, were they taken to International Criminal Court of Justice or not? They were taken there. When it happened in Rwanda, were they not taken? The one in Kenya in 2008, were some people not taken to the... So what are we saying? This is a sovereign nation, and we know our problems better. What we do is to learn from what is happening out there, globally, but locally. And I think if we can put all our hands together, that last point you have mentioned, actually that is what hate speech is all talking about. Because it's that incitement to violence that we're talking about. We're not saying people cannot, even same his father and his son, they show hatred to each other in the definition, because hatred has several definitions. But what we are talking about is this incitement to violence, which should be on the basis of ethnicity or religion. That's what we're saying.
Well,
that's what
we began a opening statement by quoting the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres Congress, where in May 2019, he said the United Nations is disposed to supporting member states upon request to providing support and in capacity building and policy development to address hate speech. Will the National Assembly, specifically the Ninth Senate, or you yourself, advocate for Nigeria to go this way to get support and then maybe help operationalize the proposed commission that you are envisioning to be created as a result of the bill?
Well, I think it would be a nice one, but let me see. I understand very fully that the capital punishment was what scared so many people from even looking at the other components of the merit of the bill. And for me, I've said it, this is a democracy. And when you listen to what people say, you take heed. So the capital punishment will definitely not be part of the bill as it proceeds. Because even in my debate, like I said, I'm going to clearly state that I intend it to be out of the bill. But we should now look at other punitive measures that we can put in place. Because for me, I'm not concerned more about the punishment. In fact, I would prefer to have a process to stop people from even getting us into getting people to be criminals within this context. I know no matter how we try, people will still have their differences. That is normal. But to get it to the extent that simply because this person is Hausa, this person is Igbo, this person is Yoruba, this person is TV, this person is Bisa, so that because of just that, you incite other people to go after those people's life, I think is what definitely I'm concerned about. Or to say simply, because I'm a Muslim, the other person is a Christian, I now bring in incitements, say things that will make my fellow Muslim brothers to feel hateful of this other person to the extent that they will go and burn their churches, kill them, and no. That is what...
It's a point of implementation. Won't the functions of this commission enter that of public complaint commission?
No. Because public complaints commission, my husband is not feeding me. My brother is maltreating me. He's not giving me school fees. Those are the things public complaints commission deals with.
They have dealt with things like this too. But let's quickly talk about the composition of the commission.
Part of what they
we talked about the chairman, but we didn't talk about the composition of the commission. How widespread is it?
No, the composition of the commission, I think we said it should be made up of 12 people. And the essence is that we have 6 geopolitical zones. There should be 2 from each of the geopolitical zones. And perhaps there are also suggestions too that as much as possible we should try to specify that some number of percentage should be women. Because one thing that has come out very clearly is that the mothering ability, that empathic nature that women have will go a long way in helping. Because like I said, the other components of their function is to help to keep society better engaged, devoid of this very, very violent incitement that some people have the tendency to do. And I think if that happens, all of us will be better for it. Now let me tell you just as a closing remark. In the course of this, 2 days ago, somebody called me and said, will I believe what happened? That somebody just made a remark saying that a group of people are doing so and so thing. What happened? That group, they felt offended, took law into their hand, and before you know what's happening, boom, they've gone to attack the person's house and have destroyed a lot of things. So this is the kind of things that is happening. And like I said, some of these things are not reported because there are people who, from even the studies I have seen, there are some people who are being silenced.
Have you considered hate speech within the political environment?
Absolutely. And like somebody said, politicians engage in hate speech, and I say politicians are Nigeria, and they are not above the law.
Well, distinguished Aliyu Savi Abdullah, we may have to end this discussion here. Certainly, the proposed bill has just passed first reading at the 9th Senate. We expect it to come for second reading. And of course, there will be the public hearing where the general public will be invited. If I may say so. Am I right?
Yeah.
The general public were invited to come and also make inputs into the bill. So the discussion and debates will continue. We brought you into the studio on platform to just, as a kind of, if you like, kickstart the debate and further make public some of the provisions of the bill. We thank you so much for your time and for having leaving the chamber to come and speak to us about the proposed hate speech bill. Thank you so much, Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, Deputy Chief Whip of the 9th Senate.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Of course, Femi Okewo, thank you so much for your judicial insights into the bill. And of course, Kemi Fake, she brought in the empathic nature of the bill, and of course the fact that her political experience, having been covering the political beat for several years for NTA, came to the proposed an act to provide for the prohibition of hate speeches and for other related matters bill, or if you like, in shortened form, the hate speech bill was our focus for on this edition of Platform. And apart from the provisions, several provisions to criminalize the act itself, the bill also envisions to establish an independent national commission for the prohibition of hate speeches. Like I said, the debate is ongoing. The 9th Senate will conduct a second hearing or second reading of the bill where all senators will be at liberty to make inputs, condemn, accept, acknowledge, endorse the provisions, and of course there will be the public hearing where the general public will also, and other stakeholders, particularly the relevant agencies whose duties right now and provisions of the act establishing them appear to have similarities with this proposed bill, will be there to also fine-tune the entire bill. For now, this is Platform. Thank you for being there. Until we come your way again, I'm Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Thank you for watching.